Hi everyone, hope you're well today. Looking forward to our session. So let's do the chanting immediately and then, of course, our meditations and so on. Be mindful, be aware, be conscientious, or with an inner smile. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Tatayampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Tatayampi Dhammam saranam gacchami. Tatayampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the six paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the six paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the six paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from their happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata gati gati para samgati bodhi soha. Tayata gati para samgati bodhi soha. Tayata gati para samgati bodhi soha. So now get yourself ready for some meditation. Nice comfortable position. And bring your mind to your body. And let's release the tension from the body. All the way from the tips of your toes up to your shoulders, down to the tips of your fingers, then back up to the top of your head. Release the tension as you focus on the different parts of the body. So let's take a little bit of time to do this now. Scan your body once more to see if there's any leftover tension that you can release. And now bring your mind to your breathing. Initially starting, of course, at the tip of your nose as you breathe in, all the way into your lungs, and then back out your nose again. Breathing in, breathing out. That's all we have to do right now, and focus on it. Focus on the feeling of the breath as you breathe in. If thoughts arise or any mental activity arises, don't cling to it. Don't grasp at it. Don't try to force it away either, or deny it. But just naturally let it go, or let them go, by replacing your mind back onto your breath, or as you replace your mind back onto your breath. Some meditations you may notice you don't have to do this very often, while other ones maybe you have to do it often. Don't worry either way, okay? Just apply the antidote of replacing the mind back on the breath and letting go any mental activity. And if your mind starts to become dull and sleepy, then wake it up by replacing your mind onto your breath more brightly. So let's practice like this in silence for a little bit. If you do find it hard to focus on your breath, then you can add the extra technique of counting the breaths from 1 up to 10. Don't count past 10. And if you get distracted while counting towards 10, go back to 1 at that time. And now feel very pleased with yourself for engaging in the practice and fill yourself with universal loving kindness. Fill your whole being with this appreciation and friendship, acceptance, forgiveness, love, kindness, compassion. You can utilize visualization of filling your being with white light or white nectar, or just go with the feeling is fine too. Fill yourself with so much loving kindness that it now radiates outwards and fills your loved ones, family and friends with this universal loving kindness as well. And also strangers, as well as those people you may regard as enemies. May all of these people have happiness, be free from suffering, and be peaceful. So let's now radiate the loving kindness out further and further distance-wise, starting initially around your immediate area to all living beings, whether weak or strong, great or small, short or tall, seen or unseen, near or distant, born or to be born. Whether you know about these living beings or not, extend your loving kindness to them. The ones that live on the land, like us, or in the waters, fly through the air. And now radiate the loving kindness out throughout your whole state or county. And keep going to other states and counties throughout your whole country. And other countries throughout the whole world, those you're familiar with and have an affinity towards, those that you're indifferent towards, as well as those you may have some negative feelings towards. And have your loving kindness also pervade throughout all of the waterways, all of the oceans and rivers and lakes. Extend the loving kindness to the core of the earth and also to the outermost atmosphere. And beyond this planet alone, have your loving kindness radiate throughout the whole solar system and throughout the whole galaxy. The whole universe, and throughout infinite space. It's immeasurable loving kindness that is generated in your own mind, your own heart. And now we'll switch techniques to the Tonglen Tibetan words, meaning giving, taking meditation. We'll utilize the breathing out or exhaling and the breathing in or inhaling. As you breathe in, you take all of the suffering, difficulties from others. So you visualize, or at least imagine, innumerable living beings, all sentient beings in front of you. And coming from their heart center is black smoke. And it enters into your heart center and melts away. So relieving all sentient beings from their sufferings, at the same time, destroying, you could say, your ego, self-centeredness. And as you breathe out from your heart center, radiate white light, entering into the heart centers of all sentient beings, giving away all of your goodness, all of your happiness, everything you find pleasing, and making others happy. At the same time, decreasing and eventually destroying your attachment. So breathing in the black smoke, breathing out the white light. So let's practice like this for a short while. Developing compassion. During these types of meditations where we use visualization, or at least the feeling there, you can actually be quite creative. For instance, when the beings in front of you are free from suffering, you actually perceive them as free from suffering. When they're happy, you perceive them as very happy. When you're giving them all of your goodness with the white light, you can even imagine there's all sorts of other things that you have attachment towards. Maybe you have attachment to your car or your house. You're giving that up as well. So even though it's very short practice during these classes, still rejoice in the fact that you get the opportunity to practice and in your own time do longer meditations. So once again, let's feel really, really pleased with ourselves. Rejoice, and then rejoice in the rejoicing, and so on. Let's recite the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of Shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And so we are doing the 4 different types, you could say, of meditations. First of all, you remember. The first part, releasing the tension from the body, is really preparatory. It's for the breath meditation, getting the mind, releasing all of the stress you may have in the body and bringing the mind inside. And then it helps then go straight onto the breath as we do that. And then, of course, we do the short loving kindness meditation. And if you remember back to the start of February, when we started the commentary on these 8 verses of thought transformation, I said that we will replace the loving kindness meditation with the giving taking meditation for the time being while we're doing this commentary. But then a few of you actually, not complained, but I'll use that word for convenience, wanted to actually do the loving kindness meditation. So that's the reason why I brought that back in, but doing both of them. And even though that does mean it's going to be a bit quicker, but I think there was 3 of you that actually said, oh, I miss doing the loving kindness meditation. So I thought, well, even if it's really fast, we're going to get the opportunity to do it. So in these classes, you get the opportunity to practice the chanting, however short. Even, of course, we're leaving out the sutras, things like that, because it would take too long. And get the chance to practice the meditations, to develop or release the tension, and then develop one-pointed concentration, as well as develop loving kindness, as well as developing compassion, and working our way towards the supreme wisdom. Okay, so I think it's a good balance, even though each part is quite short. And so now we continue the commentary on the 2nd verse. I'd say this week and then next week, and then we move on to the 3rd verse. I said to you while we were doing the commentary on the 1st verse that I'm going to cover a lot of the other verses within the commentary in the first verse. Just the nature of these teachings, and according to tradition, that's kind of what we do. And so anyway, I think we had about 7 parts to the first one. The second verse, I think there's going to be 5 parts. And I think the third one, I had a look at the notes the other day or the other evening, and I noticed probably a few classes. So it's getting shorter. And then, of course, when we get to the end, verse 7, for instance, is really talking about the giving-taking meditation, as well as putting this concept into practice in our everyday lives, and then, of course, the last one talks about the emptiness of self. And so the last one probably will have a bit more details. Okay, so where we left off last week was talking about non-attachment, or what some people would call detachment in Buddhism. It not being turning your back on something. It's really important that we realize that, because if we turn our back on living beings, for instance, then how can we develop compassion? If we turn our back on our own problems, how can we get rid of our faults? How can we eradicate our faults? Even turning our back on our good qualities, how do we know what they are so that we can increase them? We need to face our mind, face all of the circumstances that we deal with in our lives. Otherwise, to use the example I use often, and that is, it's like you're turning your back on a fire that's getting out of control, thinking that it's going to go out by itself. No, you have to face it. You have to get to know it, know exactly what type of fire it is, and then put it out safely. For instance, if it was electrical fire, you wouldn't pour water on it. You would blanket it somehow. If it's a normal fire coming from, say, wood, with some sort of fuel in there, then water and blanketing, things like that. With the mind, we must know what it is. For instance, let's say, you're playing up and you're getting really negative. Have a look at the mind and go, okay, what is that? Why am I doing that? Where's it coming from? Is this attachment? Is this aversion? Where's this anger or frustration or whatever it is coming from? And then as you do that, you're calming your mind down, and you're also getting to know your mind more, getting to know which faults you need to relinquish and good qualities that you need to increase and perfect eventually. So basically, non-attachment in Buddhism is not turning your back on things. I'll repeat the verse that I wrote. The Buddha's teaching on detachment or non-attachment does not imply developing an attitude of disengagement from or indifference to the world or your life. Okay, facing reality, even if facing the truth is inconvenient, to use those words again. And I think as human beings, we tend to like comfortable lies more than we like inconvenient truths. Okay, but we need to face the truth. It's marvelous to be courageous like this. In true Dharma practice, we have to be courageous. We have to turn away from the common things in the world so often. Well, I like to say, go against the wind, Sometimes the wind is really strong, going to blow you that way, but you keep going this way, undaunted towards enlightenment, okay? Also important to understand that we practice seeing ourselves as the lowest of all, as it says in this verse. Whenever I'm with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all, and respectfully, I will hold others as supreme. No, I understand the true meaning of that. Is to balance it out, to develop a mind of equanimity, to give up bias for ourselves, putting ourselves and our well-being above others. We've been doing this for so many lifetimes. It's such a thick habit. Now we're undoing it, okay? We need to understand this phrase in its right context. We need to develop humility, have some sort of balance in our lives, mentally balanced, as well as balanced in our physical things that we do, our diet, etc., etc. Maintain a stable mind so we're not blown off our Dharma path. Maintain a flexible mind so that we're able to deal with all of the changes that come and go and all of the circumstances that we experience in our lives, whether they be good experiences, we give up attachment to them, and whether if it's difficult experiences, give up aversion for them and deal with them, and like the big oak tree, that song that I wrote many years ago, which is about patience, to be like a big oak tree, be humble, flexible, stable, okay, and be honest to ourselves, very important as well. So next page says, it is not engaging in thoughts that could lead to a lack of confidence or low self-esteem. When we're saying we're going to put ourselves at the lowest of all, that is not the goal, okay? So it's not the goal that we lack confidence in ourselves. It's not the goal that we create low self-esteem. In fact, it should have the opposite effect. Give rise to enthusiasm and joyfulness and so on. Or to lose all sense of hope or feel dejected. Thinking that I'm the lowest of the lowest, This is an extreme view if we think like that. Remember, the Dharma path is the middle path, beyond extremes. Or that I have no capacity to do anything. I have no power. Don't think like that. Actually, it's the opposite. The true power throughout this universe and beyond is compassion. Starting from the wisdom, you could say the active part of wisdom is compassion. Now, of course, included in this compassion is love and kindness and the like. Okay? So the power of compassion and love, this is the true power that we are working to develop. This is not the consideration of lowness that is being referred to here, okay? We say lowest because we already put ourselves up there. We put ourselves as the highest. That's our focus. That's our intention. I want happiness. What do I want? I. How often do we say the word I or mine or me in our lives? Every time we do that, by the way, maybe you can have some dry humor inside you and say, there's that old habit again that keeps reinforcing the belief in self. Every time we say it, every time we think it, I think it leaves this imprint on the mind, more attachment. So let's work at giving up the attachment to self. We should understand that regarding ourselves as lower than others helps us to lessen and overcome self-centeredness, as just mentioned. So this self-centeredness, by the way, it's difficult for most people to hear teachings like this. In fact, because what happens is they may get offended that we're saying for a start, you're self-centered or I'm self-centered. Of course we are. But let's utilize this self-centeredness to let go of self-centeredness. Let's utilize our ignorance to uproot the ignorance, and so on, okay? Cultivate compassion based on equanimity. Examples. Generally, human beings are superior to animals, okay? This is general. In some ways, you can say that animals are superior to human beings too. For instance, they have, or are said to have, heightened senses. When there's a disaster about to happen, or when there's big weather changes to happen, the animals tend to go ahead of time, don't they? Whereas us human beings, we wait, weighed down by our attachments, maybe our senses, that maybe we too could have this sort of sixth sense, if you want to call it that, for convenience. But we are so engrossed with ourself, centering our focus on ourself, that's called self-centeredness, that maybe we don't pay attention to certain things that would be helpful for us in our lives, such as knowing when there's going to be disasters happening or when there's going to be a big change in weather. So what did I write here? Because I actually just wrote this a couple of weeks ago. We have the ability to judge right from wrong and think in terms of past, present, and future. This is how human beings are superior to animals. We can discern right from wrong, and we can make the choice then to do what is right and to avoid engaging in doing what is wrong. Whereas animals live more instinctively through very thick habits, and they do it for survival mainly. Probably they don't think of past, present, and future either. You know, I remember seeing some dog experts, whatever that means, and they say things like, you know, if you are training the dog and you need to discipline them, you have to do it straight away, because they don't think, you know, that as soon as the past is, it's gone. And so say you want to discipline him 5 minutes later, the dog probably thinks, what's that for? You know, so you actually got to discipline them straight away, because maybe they don't really have this concept of past, present, future, thinking about it anyway on a deeper level or a more clear level. But it could be argued that we are inferior to animals, even though they may not be able to judge between right and wrong, or think about time, like I just mentioned, in a moral sense, that is, and see the long-term consequences of their actions. But they are at least have some sort of certain sense of order, don't they? So they may not think of the consequences. Let's say they kill a living being. They don't really think, oh, that's bad karma. Whereas we have the ability to do that, you know. But they do kind of have an order in the so-called animal kingdom. There seems to be an order to things. Whereas us human beings, maybe we don't have an order a lot of the time. Maybe chasing after our attachments, or things we find pleasing, trying to avoid things we find unpleasant, and so on. Okay, so we are on to the last page of my notes, my point notes for this second verse. So for sure, we'll finish this one up next week. I know I've said that many times before. Maybe I'll think of something else. Who knows? Prove myself wrong. So predators prey on other animals because they are hungry, or kill other animals out of fear for their life. So I'm pointing out now how, and you could perceive animals as being more superior to human beings. When they aren't hungry, they tend to coexist with each other peacefully. I think of some videos that I've seen in pictures. You know, let's say there's a water hole, like a small pond or something or other, and the animals in Africa, I'm thinking that I've seen before, they tend to coexist together. The lions, they're full. They don't need to eat the deer, so the deer is free to drink the water, correct? So they seem to, when they're not hungry, they don't kill, or when they're not fearful, they don't kill. You know, so generally, of course. But human beings, even though we're able to judge right from wrong, we sometimes act out of pure greed and anger. Take, for instance, hunting for sport. You know, the animals don't do that, but we humans do it. You know, also I've seen some videos of, you know, people going what they call game hunting or something like that, you know, killing elephants for their tusks and things like that. You know, we human beings tend to put some sort of monetary value on things. Let's say, for instance, a farmer, you know, dairy farmer or whatever, they're thinking, yeah, they may have some care for the animals, but really thinking in terms of money, how much money I can earn from these animals and from the things the animals produce, for instance. That's coming from greed, you know, even if it is a necessity to make a living so that we can survive physically. We know right from wrong, but so often we don't act in the right way, and we do act in the wrong way. Animals, more of an order to it. So sometimes out of indulgence, for sport or supposed pleasure, imagine that, getting pleasure out of killing an animal. I think that's kind of awful, really. Like hunting, like fishing, destroying the life needlessly. I remember years ago, somebody I knew was asked, why do you like to go fishing, by a Chinese nun? And he says, it's relaxing. She says, how does a fish feel? He says, I actually don't eat them. I throw them back. And she said, but the hook goes in the mouth. That's not very nice. She asked him whether he likes going to the dentist. And of course he said no. And she said, try to give up fishing. I won't go on further with that story, but I thought I'd share that example with you off the top of my head. Also, animals seem to be able to sense, I mentioned this before, sense ahead dangers such as severe weather changes or disasters, tsunamis, earthquakes, etc. We humans tend to remain oblivious to it. So you can see, generally, as a human being, yes, we can discern right from wrong. We can work, learn from the past, know the present is fleeting, work towards, you could say, a better future, or even know that there is no future, because when the future arrives, it's the present. We can understand this. We can understand things on a deeper level, an atomic level, subatomic level, from physical point of view, We can understand things. We can utilize our ability to investigate and analyze phenomena, mental phenomena as well as physical phenomena. We have the ability to do that, whereas animals can't do that. So we don't think they can anyway. Maybe they can. Maybe the elephant is said to have very good memory, but do they think, yesterday was yesterday? No, us human beings, we probably, grasp onto things too much. But still, if we utilize our intelligence, our level of intelligence, then we can actually improve ourselves, improve our life conditions, improve our wisdom, compassion, loving kindness, and so on. And so, yes, superior in this sense, but many other ways inferior. It's best to know this, to humble ourselves. With a humble mind, as mentioned or alluded to earlier, then we'll be less attached, have less aversion. Mind will be more stable, more clear, more flexible, able to deal with difficulties better, able to let go of attachments better. So I think it just went under 1 minute. And so we'll finish up this second verse next week and then move on to the third verse. Like I said, probably about 3 classes to deal with the third verse. And I rejoice in the time we spend together on this Zoom, on this computer. And every day I send you the merits, and I hope you send me the merits, and share your meritorious goodness with all living beings, okay? I rejoice in this, and I rejoice in your goodness. Practice the Dharma to the best of your ability. Don't try too hard, don't try too little. See you next week. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya.